This is a testimony that Apostle Paul tells. This is a story he never finished telling. The story of his encounter with Jesus Christ. All right? Now, I'd like us to pick the vital ingredients in the presentation, and then we'll use those ingredients as an object, an ingredient for our navigation this evening. Still on the story, say, and one Ananias, a devout man, according to the law, having good report of the Jews which dwelt there, came unto me and stood and said unto me, Brother Saul, receive thy sight. And the same hour I looked upon him. Verse 14. This is where I'm going. And he said, God of our fathers has chosen thee. It means this man had some interaction with Jesus Christ, and he was coming to prophesy to Apostle Paul to give him perspective of his kingdom destiny. I hope you know the story. He was empowered by letters. When Christianity started, him being a zealot and one of the scholars in the ways, in the training and the education of the Pharisees, who happened to have done his master's degree under Gamaliel. Because when you finish from the pool of studies and you show some promise, you are separated from the general pool and then isolated to reputable scholars like Gamaliel, so that you can, advance your knowledge and become an expert in a certain theological area in Judaism. Paul had all of those honors. It's just like a first-class graduate. And sometimes if you hit a first class, you can go and do your PhD directly. There's no need for you to do masters. Because masters is the same thing as your first degree, just little differences to ensure that you master the things that they taught you in your first degree. So if you have already mastered it by showing your capacity to earn a first class, you go and become an authority in it, and that's why you do your PhD. So this young man, we are talking about someone that is a PhD holder at the end of the process. And he felt that Christianity was a nuisance. It was an object that was set up to fight the spread of Judaism. And he went as far as going to the chief priest to get authorization so that he can bring people bound that were Christians, causing nuisance in the city and diverting the attention of people doctrinally. So that was the first time in the history of the practice of Judaism that there was a militia that was set up to enforce the will of the Sanhedrin. That was the first time. And I know you know, that the Sanhedrin did not only contain Pharisees. It contained Pharisees and Sadducees. And I don't have time to take you through the journey. I'll show you. It's just like, I've forgotten the name of your parties. But in the parliament, if you have more, what are the names? MPC? MPP. Okay. So in the parliament, if you have more of MPP people, they can have their way if they cast their vote. So I can show you times in that parliament where there were more Sadducees. I can also show you times in that parliament where there were more Pharisees. Because the parliament went the way of the Pharisees. So you can imagine that it was the Pharisees that had the upper hand when they set up the militia to enforce Judaism. Not the Judaism of the Sadducees, but the Judaism of the Pharisees. And I don't want to go into all the details about the differences. This guy was going armed with the authority that he needed to enforce the will of the Sanhedrin. And the object that empowered him were the letters he secured from the chief priest. So unfortunately for him, he met with the Lord. So he changed camp from the letters. He ended up with the Lord. Hallelujah. so, may you change camp. May you change camp. He changed camp from the letters to the Lord. And the first functionary that the Lord sent to him to give him proper orientation as to his scope of operation within the kingdom that he has found himself was Ananias. These are the words of Ananias. And I want you to know that these words did not originate from Ananias. These words originated from Jesus Christ. He was just a spokesman that was called to herald the counsel that he found on the mount of Jesus. And he was able to pick up this counsel because he had intimacy with Jesus. This is what he said: the God of our fathers has chosen thee. First reason, that thou shouldest know his will. Second reason, and see the just one. It's not enough for you to enter into the economy of his present revelation position in the spirit. He also wants to reveal himself to you. That's what makes a man a prophet. A man is not a prophet because he knows the will of God. Because before God sends you with his counsel, God would have revealed himself to you. So when you hear someone maybe operating in the capacity of the prophet by title, and he doesn't have the capacity to reveal God, he doesn't know He's an impostor. You see, I'm not a pastor. I tell you the way it is so that you will know, you will understand. What makes, you are not with me. Let me repeat myself. What makes a man a prophet is not that he can scan you and no. That's not. An evangelist can do that. A teacher can do that. So what exactly is prophetic ministry? Prophetic ministry is the kind of thing that Ananias is doing. Can you see what I'm talking about? Ananias is speaking from the mouth of Jesus. Ananias knows Jesus. A prophet is a friend of Jesus. Now, if I come here today and I want to tell you about my wife, I've been in marriage by God's grace for 15 years. All right? If I want to tell you about my wife, I will not be telling you what her mother will tell you. Her mother has her own story to tell, which may be very different from my own story. But I'm speaking from the point of my interference, my friendship with that woman. She's been with me in the storm. In fact, you don't understand. She's the first daughter of a professor and was the only daughter for 15 years before her brother came along. So they are used to secluded life. My dad was the first rich man from my village. Are you there? So what he did was that he goes around, he picks one person from this family to train, picks another person from that family to train. So at some point in my family, we were like 22 people are members of my household. Not because my dad was a polygamist. Are you following me? But he had this heart of serving his people. Okay? So my wife is very closed, very reserved, and I'm a man of the people. And I'm not so by constitution. I'm so by exposure. Are you following? I remember some place that they gave us from London when we married. So she kept it somewhere. The plate has name. It has a name. Wedges. I think you call it wedges also. And then there was this lady in the house that time. We later discovered it was a demon. She was possessed. But the demon moves her in the night to where those plates are. And then in the middle of the night, you hear... That was how those plates broke one by one until the entire inventory was consumed. It was later we detected that an evil spirit was behind it. May the Lord give you understanding. So you can imagine these two different kind of people, one very close, and in fact, when I married her, I'm like my dad, so I brought people too. Married her into that confusion. So I can tell you, may the Lord give you understanding. I can tell you stories about how we grew. Today I have afflicted her with my ways that she can no longer live that secret life. She now likes people. It's a long story. See, the stories that I'm telling you now, the mother cannot tell you because they lived in a paneled house and she was upstairs. This one I'm telling you is a side of her that her mother never experienced. A prophet is a friend of Jesus. That is so in his business is intimacy with Jesus. But his ministry comes out of his intimacy with Jesus. So if a prophet begins to talk about his relationship with God and teach you about God, you will know God. When you see someone that doesn't have the dialect of God, running around with a gift, masquerading as a prophet, then we have a problem. This man's ministry was coming from the fountain of his intimacy with Jesus Christ. He said, the God of our fathers has chosen thee. You are a product of the grace of divine election. Whereas they need to elect people into the parliament, you were chosen from the throne above. And no man cannot make this ordination. You don't look like it. People might even call you a murderer. But the God of our fathers, what has he done? He has chosen. Did you campaign? The other day somebody told me, okay, maybe I was the one that told somebody. I said, if it was an election, I would not win to qualify for the grace that God gave me. and so also you will not win. But he chose you. So that was the first insight that this man brings. And from when the Old Testament closed, this is the first man that ever spoke about receiving a message from the God of their fathers. This is the first one. Okay? He said, he has chosen you that you should know his will. He has chosen you that you should see the just one. He has chosen you that you should hear words from his mouth. So this is the intention of God. I've chosen you. So I'm telling you now that he chose you so that you can know his will. He chose you so that he will no longer be a stranger to you, but you'll be able to see him and build intimacy with him. He chose you so that you can hear words from his mouth. That's the package that God has for every New Testament believer. But I need to show you how to actualize this possibility, which is God's utmost desire for your life. So we're going to read it together again. And he said, 1, 2, go. And he said, the God of our fathers has chosen thee, that thou shouldest know his will, and see the righteous one, and hear words from his mouth. Okay. So now this is the objective. This is why we are studying. We want to find out what is the technology that is in the Bible that affords us the opportunity to come into this reality that God is desiring for each and every one of us. And you will know that before this time, Apostle Paul was in Judaism. Before this time, even though in Judaism was a product of an act of God. There was a certain revelation of God that gave birth to that. And God was moving into other things at this time. Are you with me? You are not with me. That was why this man used the God of our fathers. He said, what we are doing here is not different from, it's the same God that gave us. So this shook him, seriously. That, you heard from the God of, yes. Say you are chosen. He wants you to know his will. He wants you to see the righteous one. He wants you to hear words from his mouth. Okay. All right, let's do something quickly. And what I want us to do is in the book of Genesis. We will take Abraham's life as a prototype. And we'll see how God led that man. You know, Abraham was an unbeliever. He was in the land of Ur of the Chaldees. And God called him from his kindred, from his country, and from his father's house. Is that true? All right, so come with me quickly. In the book of Genesis, chapter 12, in Genesis chapter 12, most of us know the call of Abraham, so I will start my reading from the obedience that Abraham brought to the table, corresponding to the call that he had received, which is Genesis chapter 12, verse 4. And it will also interest you to know that the first man in the entire Bible that God himself called a prophet was Abraham. And it was also interesting to know that Abraham never prophesied. Did you see? Oh, you're not. You see, your idea of who a prophet is wrong. But I don't have time to tackle that now. That was the man that God called. He told Pharaoh, he says, go to that Abraham, let him pray for you because he is a prophet and he will pray for you. He did not say he's a prophet and he will prophesy to you. What did he say he will do? He will pray. I will explain why God said that.